Buddy, Mr. C here. Ooh. So where we last left off was being able to connect to the database C9 and then pull from the table called people, and we were able to extract first name, last name, and favorite color, which looked like this right there. Now today what we're going to do is we're going to create a new table using PHP MyAdmin, and we are going to not do whatever I just did here. Open. Thank you. And use this structure here that we've created to make a navigation. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to select everything. So Command or Control A in the index.php file, and then Command or Control C to copy. And then we're going to make a new file. So over in Bash here, we're going to touch, I forgot what I called it, so we'll just call it backup.php. And then I'll paste all that in there, and then save it, and then close backup out. So we're going to work with index.php. The reason we're going to have a backup of this is in order for us to be able to go back and look at, have a quickly accessible reference of code that did work. Now, because we're using Git, we should be committing as we go. In fact, I should probably make that something we do at the end of every day, is to commit, to add and commit our changes, but we didn't do that yet. So maybe we'll do it at the end of this lesson. But so we could always roll back a commit to see what we had done, but then we've got to move back forward again, and that it can take. It's faster to just have the file right here to be able to open up and look at it, to be honest with you. So, but the backup.php we're not going to use. It is just a reference, a point in time, so you can see proper structure of how we make this, how we accomplish this connection to the database, and ultimately grabbing records from the table and exporting them out. Okay, cool. So now let's go over to our PHP MyAdmin, and we're going to make a new table called nav, and this one's going to have 3 columns, and click on Go. All right. And our first column name is going to be ID. It's going to be the type integer. And we're only just going to make it 1 because we're not going to have more than 9 navigation elements. Cool. The index is going to be primary. And I should state, if I haven't already, that in every table, you can only ever have 1 primary index. The primary index is what the default sort of the table is. When you perform a select, the records are indexed based on this primary index, and so they go in order of, it's a historical entry, so it goes in as you add them over time. The ID will increase, and so the first one that we enter is going to have an ID of 1, second one's going to have an ID of 2, etc., etc. So we're going to use auto increment. So after we add our first record with an ID of 1, all the subsequent records will automatically increase. The ID will increase. Okay, so now we're going to, our next field is going to be called, what did we call it? Title, I think? Yeah, title. And it's going to be variable character, so make sure you click that drop down and choose variable character. And the length of this, I think we set it at 20. Yep. And then link is also going to be variable character, and we set this one at 100 because these links can sometimes get really long. But our inbound links, so the links that are local to our site, won't ever get that long. If they are, we're doing something very wrong. But an outbound link, like to another website, could possibly get longer. So we just want to have an accommodation for that in there. Cool. And then save this. Boop. Cool. All right, so now we have two tables, nav and people. And it's important to remember or to know this right here, it says drop. Do not ever, 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 ever click on that, because what that will do is it will drop your table from the database, meaning it deletes it. And as you will learn, when you're working with SQL, there is no undo. There will never be an undo. And no matter how much and who you pray to, your data will never come back if you do some kind of update that erases something or you perform a drop on it. So be super careful. We don't ever want to click on drop unless you know that that table is hosed and you want to start all over. Cool. So now let's go ahead and click on nav. And we're going to insert some records into that. So this first one is going to be the ID of one, and we're going to call it home. And the link is going to be index.php. And I'm just going to click on go. Cool. Now I'm going to insert again, and this time I'm going to leave the ID blank. I'm going to call this contact.php, and this one's going to be about and about.php. Notice that the ID, the value, I've left empty, and the reason for that is that when I click go and these get written to the table, it's going to automatically add the MySQL software is going to automatically add those IDs in there in history. So as these things are in time, you know, micro, milli, mini, tiny little seconds away from each other. One is going to be 2 and the next one's going to be 3. So I'm going to click go, and it's inserted those. And if I click on browse, I can see now I have 3 records: ID 1, 2, and 3, home, contact, and about, index, contact, and about. Cool. Okay, so that's it for our database setup. And let's go ahead and pop back over to our week 11 in Cloud 9 now. And we're going to make some changes. Simple changes. Number one, the first thing we're going to do is we're not going to access the people table now. This time we want to access the nav table because we want to pull the navigation elements. And what I'm going to do, just for demonstration, is I'm going to change this to ID. I'm going to change last name to title, and I'm going to get rid of that and change fav color to link. All right. And then save. Now let's go ahead and refresh this over here, and we should have our index number, a space, the title, and then the actual page name, the file name. There's no space between those two because we didn't code it in there, which we did right here. So if we wanted to, I could add a dot and then put a space in like that. And so then we get the ID, title, link. Save that. Refresh this guy. Now we get a little space in there. Now what we want to do is we want to actually make this clickable links. So I'm just going to comment this line out and copy that line down. And I'm going to add a little bit more text in here so that this can actually become an anchor tag, an HTML anchor tag. So I'm going to do double quotes there and a period, and I'm going to start with the opening anchor tag, and I'm going to say href equals, and immediately after that, I don't want it to be ID, I want this to go to link. Now, if you're seeing that there's a mistake already, just sit tight. We're going to fix that. Some of you might be like, well, that's not going to work. And you're right. But we're just trying to make this happen for right now so we can see it in action. Okay. And the next one is, so I'm going to close that anchor tag. And then my title is going to show up here. And I'm going to just completely get rid of this second link here so that we're closing with not a break, but we need to close with the closing anchor tag and then a break after that. So if you want, I mean, you could do something like that. It's unnecessary though. You can put them together in the same string. So here we have an opening anchor tag, and the link that people, when they click on this part here in the HTML, it's going to go to this thing here. And so that exists between the opening and closing anchor tag. See, here's that closing bracket right there, that greater than sign, which corresponds with this opening. And together, this is, whoopsie, together, these guys are the opening anchor tag, and here's the closing anchor tag. And then the stuff between it, the opening and closing tag, is what is clickable. All right, so I'm going to save this. Spike, shush. I'm going to refresh the page. So now we have clickable links. Now watch what happens when I hover over home. It looks like it's going to work, and in fact it probably will work. If I click on home, it's just going to take us right back to this because by default it's loading up the index.php page. But it's not actually semantically correct, because when we have, so I'm going to view source on this, when we create tags or links that are anchors, this part right here needs to be inside of quotes to be semantically correct. It can't just be href equals. Now in Chrome it works, but in some older browsers it will not work. So in order to fix that, we have to add those quotes on the inside of our string. Now because we're already using double quotes on the outside to encapsulate this whole string here, what we have to do is put a single quote right there. And then after that link, inside of the double quote string is another single quote. So if I save and I refresh that, everything looks the same as far as the links go, but when I view source, now I can see that this is inside of quotes, and now that is semantically correct. Yes, in Chrome it will work without those guys, but we don't want to risk it. Okay, so that is how we make links or navigation from a table. And what's cool is that if I want to, I can increase my navigation elements by just simply inserting another row. And this is just like we did with, so we did home, about, contact, and let's do one called by. And we'll say by.php and then go. And so now that that's done, I don't even need to go back to Cloud9 to like save my file or upload anything. I just refresh my page and now I have a link that says by. We did something similar to this in JavaScript, where we used an array to create a list for us. And that's basically what's happening right here. When we are querying this, it's bringing it back basically as a table array, and then it's going row by row here and fetching an associative array of each row of that result. And that's why we're able to access this almost exactly like we do with JavaScript. When you're accessing elements of an associative array, you have names for those guys. So that is that. That should bring you up to speed. And so now I'm gonna, let's make sure and save my work. And I'm going to git add everything, git commit -m, and I'm going to say this is added dynamic nav. Don't forget that closing double quote there. Enter, and then git push origin. Now you guys would type master, but I am actually in a week 12 branch because I'm trying to stay in line with where I'm at in the school year. So we've done 12 weeks of this. It's pretty incredible that we're already doing database stuff. Now my GitHub is up to the date here. There it is. Added dynamic nav. Sweet. Cool. Okay, so see you in the next vid.